Welcome to another episode of the Part 145 ESA training from Phoenix Way Academy. Hi, I'm Sarah.
Hi, and I'm Sam.
In our last deep dive, we started looking into the acceptable means of compliance, the AMCs, and guidance material, or GMs, for Section 145.A.30. That's all about personnel requirements.
That's right.
Today, we're picking up exactly where we left off, going even deeper into those vital details.
Yeah, absolutely. So for this deep dive, we're really going to focus on three really critical areas within personnel requirements. We'll kick off with safety training, making sure to cover human factors. Then we'll get into the very precise world of non-destructive testing, NDT. And finally, we'll tackle the specifics around minor line maintenance tasks.
Sure.
Each one is just fundamental for ensuring aircraft stay airworthy and, ultimately keeping everyone safe.
And our aim today is really to cut through some of the complexity in these regulations. We want to show not just what they say, but why every little detail matters for operational safety, giving you that deeper insight into how these rules actually work to protect every flight. So let's start with GM5 145.30E. This is the guidance material on safety training, including human factors. Why is continuous training stressed so much here?
Well, it's because safety isn't, a fixed target. It's always evolving. A really solid safety management system in SMS absolutely depends on continuous training. It needs to adapt, almost like a living thing, to the changes in how an organization operates. Subclause A actually spells this out. It reads, "The scope of the safety training and the related training program will vary significantly depending on the size and complexity of the organization. Safety training should reflect the evolving management system and the changing roles of the personnel who make it work."
Okay, so the main point is it's definitely not a one-size-fits-all kind of checklist. You can't just copy and paste it. It has to be tailored specifically to how that particular organization works.
Exactly. Just picture the difference. A small, very specialized MRO may be focusing just on landing gear components. Compare that to a massive international airline managing, dozens of aircraft types all over the world.
Completely different scales.
Right. Their safety risks, the technology they use, the complexity of their operations. It's all different. So their training has to be just as distinct and crucially adaptable.
So given it's so dynamic, when exactly do the rules say organizations must provide this training? This is where it gets really specific, isn't it?
It does. Subclause B in the GM lays out precisely when training should be provided as a minimum. It gives 5 key moments. First, it says, during the initial implementation of safety management processes.
Right, so that's the foundation. When a brand new safety system rolls out, everyone needs to get on the same page from the start.
Absolutely. Think of it like launching a big new software system across a whole company. Everyone needs that initial training. They need to understand how it works, how their job fits in, what their specific responsibilities are now. Second, training is needed for all new staff or personnel recently allocated to safety management-related tasks.
Ah, that makes sense. Crucial for getting people integrated properly, ensuring they're competent straight away if their job touches safety.
Precisely. Maybe a new person joins the safety team. Or perhaps an experienced technician takes on new duties, maybe safety reporting or doing internal audits. They need specific training for those new safety roles. Third, it needs to happen on a regular basis to refresh their knowledge and to understand changes to the management system.
This really drives home that safety training isn't a one-off thing you do and forget. It's got to be ongoing.
It really does. Those annual recurrent training sessions, they aren't just box ticking. They're vital for covering updates to safety policy, maybe sharing lessons learned from recent incidents, or introducing new regulations that affect the SMS. Keeps everyone current. Okay. Fourth, training is required when changes in personnel affect safety management roles and related accountabilities, responsibilities, and authorities.
So this is a bit different from just new staff. This is about changes within the organization, maybe shifts in roles or structure that change who's responsible for what in terms of safety.
Exactly. A good example might be, say, a senior manager takes over a new department, and that department has specific safety risks they haven't dealt with before. They'd need training on their new, wider accountabilities, their authorities, especially around things like risk tolerability, which the guidance mentions.
Got it.
And finally, point 5 in subclause B specifies training is needed when performing dedicated safety functions in domains such as safety risk management, compliance monitoring, and internal investigations.
Right, so this sounds like really specialized training for the people who are deep into the safety processes.
That's exactly it. We're talking about specific, detailed courses for people whose main job involves, say, identifying hazards, doing risk assessments, leading compliance audits, or maybe heading up incident investigations. Their training needs are much more focused. Then, subclause adds a crucial point. Safety training is subject to the record-keeping requirements in point 145 by A.55D.
And why is this record keeping so critical? I mean, beyond just having the paperwork for an audit, what are the real implications?
Well, during an EASA audit, those records are the hard evidence. They prove that your people are properly trained, that the training is up to date, and that the organization is meeting the regulations. It directly impacts your ability to keep your Part 145 approval. But more than that, it shows a real commitment to a safety culture you can actually demonstrate and verify.
Okay, so pulling all that together for GM5 on safety training, what's the main message we should take away?
The main message is that safety training is absolutely dynamic. It's not a static tick box exercise. It must be carefully tailored to the organization's specific size, complexity, and the risks it faces. This means training is vital at key points when you start, for new people, regular updates when roles change, and for specialist functions. And really importantly, all of it needs to be backed up by solid, accurate records. That ensures compliance and proves competence.
Okay, that's very clear. Let's shift gears now to AMC 145.A.30F. This acceptable means of compliance deals with non-destructive testing, or NDT. Sam, for anyone less familiar, maybe just briefly explain what NDT is and why it's so vital in aviation.
Sure. NDT, non-destructive testing, it's pretty much what the name suggests. It's a way of inspecting materials or components for hidden flaws or defects without damaging the part itself. It's vital because it lets us check critical aircraft structures, like wings or engine parts, for tiny cracks or internal issues that you just can't see with the naked eye. It ensures they're truly safe to keep operating. Clause 1 defines it formally. Continued airworthiness non-destructive testing means such testing specified by the type certificate holder or the declarant of a declaration of design compliance aircraft or engine or propeller manufacturer in accordance with the maintenance data as specified in 145.A.45 for in-service aircraft components for the purpose of determining the continued fitness of the product to operate safely.
So the key thing here is that NDT isn't just any old check. It's a specific test defined by the manufacturer using their data to make sure a part is still fit for purpose.
Exactly. It means if, say, Boeing or Airbus specifies a particular ultrasonic test method to check a wing spar, you must use that specific method and follow their exact procedure. You can't just do a quick visual or substitute another technique. It's all about sticking to the original design safety margins. Clause 2 then gets into the qualifications. Appropriately qualified mean to level 1, 2, or 3 as defined by the European standard EN 4179, dependent upon the non-destructive testing function to be carried out.
Right, EN 4179. What do these levels, level 1, 2, and 3, actually mean in practice for the technicians doing the work?
Okay, so generally speaking, a level 1 NDT technician can set up the equipment and perform the test, following very specific instructions. A level 2 technician usually has more experience in training. They can still perform the test, but critically, they can also interpret the results against the acceptance criteria and say whether the part passes or fails. And a level 3, that's the highest level. They often oversee the whole NDT program within an organization. They can establish and validate NDT procedures, interpret codes and standards, and usually train and certify the level 1 and 2 personnel.
Okay.
Now, Clause 3 is really important, especially regarding level 3 personnel. Notwithstanding the fact that level 3 personnel may be qualified via EN 4179 to establish and authorize methods, techniques, etc., this does not permit such personnel to deviate from methods and techniques published in the maintenance data, unless the maintenance data expressly permits such deviation.
So even the top experts, the level 3s, have strict limits. They can't just decide to use a different NDT method if it's not in the book.
That's absolutely crucial. A level 3, even with all their expertise, cannot just decide, oh, I think a different frequency for this ultrasonic test would be better, or let's use this other type of dye penetrant. They are strictly bound by what the approved maintenance data, like the aircraft maintenance manual, specifies. Unless that manual explicitly says you can use method A or method B, or allows for specific deviations under certain conditions, they must follow the primary method. Safety depends on that rigor.
Understood. Very strict adherence.
Clause 4 talks about the examination boards. Notwithstanding the general references in EN 4179 to a National Aerospace Non-Destructive Testing (NDT) board, all examinations should be conducted by personnel or organizations under the general control of such a board. In the absence of a national aerospace NDT board, the Aerospace NDT board of another member state should be used, as defined by the competent authority.
Why the big emphasis on using these external national NDT boards? What's the benefit?
It's all about maintaining impartiality and consistency. It ensures a high, universally recognized standard for certification. It means, for example, a technician certified by the approved French National NDT Board can have their qualification recognized in Germany or Spain or anywhere in the EASA system.
Yeah.
It stops any potential for, an organization just certifying its own people without proper oversight. It guarantees competence across borders.
Right. Standardization and impartiality makes sense.
Clause 5 then lists the common types of NDT. Particular non-destructive test means any one or more of the following: dye-penetrant, magnetic particle, eddy current, ultrasonic and radiographic methods, including X-ray and gamma ray.
And just quickly, what sort of flaws do these different methods typically find?
Sure, dye-penetrant is really good for finding cracks open to the surface. Magnetic particle testing works on ferromagnetic materials to find surface and just below the surface flaws. Eddy current testing is great for detecting surface cracks, especially in conductive materials, and also measuring conductivity changes. Ultrasonic testing uses sound waves to find internal defects, like voids or cracks deep inside a part. And radiographic testing, using X-rays or gamma rays, is like taking a medical X-ray of the component. It lets you see internal structures and find hidden flaws or density variations.
Okay.
Clear.
Clause 6 addresses something important: new technology. It should be noted that new methods are and will be developed, such as, but not limited to, thermography and chirography, which are not specifically addressed by EN 4179. Until the time this agreed standard is established, such methods should be carried out in accordance with the particular equipment manufacturer's recommendations, including any training and examination process to ensure competence of the personnel in the process.
So how does the system handle these emerging NDT technologies before there's an official EN standard for them?
It takes a practical approach. If you're using a new method, maybe advanced thermography for composite inspection, and EN 4179 hasn't caught up yet, you must follow the equipment manufacturer's specific recommendations. That includes their prescribed training program and their examination process. This ensures personnel are competent even while the formal industry standard is still under development.
Right. Follow the maker's instructions until the rulebook is updated.
Exactly. Then Clause 7 brings in the MOE again. Any maintenance organization approved under Part 145 that carries out NDT should establish NDT specialist qualification procedures detailed in the exposition and accepted by the competent authority.
So the maintenance organization exposition is the key document here. It has to spell out exactly how the organization handles NDT qualifications.
Absolutely. The MOE must detail the whole process: how they recruit NDT specialists, their initial training, their recurrent training, how their qualifications are checked and kept current. It's the organization's approved roadmap for NDT personnel. Now, Clause 8 makes an interesting distinction. Borescoping and other techniques such as delamination coin tapping are non-destructive inspections rather than non-destructive testing. Notwithstanding such differentiation, the maintenance organization should establish an exposition procedure accepted by the competent authority to ensure that personnel who carry out and interpret such inspections are properly trained and assessed for their competence in the process. Non-destructive inspections, not being considered as NDT by Part 145, are not listed in Appendix 2 under Class Rating D1.
Ah, okay. So there's a formal difference between NDT, as defined by Part 145, and other non-destructive inspections like using a borescope or coin tapping composites. But the key point seems to be, even if it's not NDT in the regulations, you still need a formal procedures in the MOE for training and ensuring competence.
That's crucial, yes. Using a borescope to look inside an engine, for example, isn't technically NDT under the D1 rating, but the MOE must still specify how the person using it is trained, how they're assessed, to make sure they can actually spot a problem and interpret what they see correctly. Competence is required for all inspection tasks.
Got it.
Clause 9 reinforces the MOE's role. The referenced standards, methods, training, and procedures should be specified in the maintenance organization exposition.
So an MOE really has to be the single source of truth for all NDT standards and practices within that specific company.
Precisely. It needs to list the relevant EN 4179 standards, the specific NDT techniques the organization's approved to use, and exactly how their NDT personnel are trained, qualified, and maintained. Everything documented and approved.
Okay.
Clause 10 clarifies requirements for people perhaps qualified under older systems. Any such personnel who intend to carry out and/or control a non-destructive test for which they were not qualified prior to the effective date of Part 145 should qualify for such non-destructive tests in accordance with EN 4179.
So this really hammers home that current EN 4179 qualification is mandatory now, regardless of past experience, if you're performing or controlling NDT today.
That's the rule. Even if someone has decades of NDT experience predating the current Part 145 framework, if they want to perform a specific NDT task now, they need to meet the current EN 4179 qualification requirements for that task.
Yeah.
Standards evolve.
Right.
And finally, Clause 11 defines what's meant by an officially recognized standard. In this context, officially recognized standard means those standards established or published by an official body, whether having legal personality or not, which are widely recognized by the air transport sector as constituting good practice.
So it's not just any standard someone made up, but one that has broad acceptance across the aviation industry as representing good, safe practice.
Exactly. Think standards from bodies like ISO or ASTM or other well-respected industry groups whose standards are widely adopted and seen as benchmarks in global aviation maintenance.
Okay. So summing up this whole section on non-destructive testing, what are the main takeaways?
NDT is absolutely critical for finding those hidden defects, ensuring structural integrity without causing damage. It's tightly controlled by EN 4179 qualification levels, overseen by independent national boards, and must strictly follow the manufacturer's maintenance data. The organization's MOE is central. It documents all procedures, training, and standards. And there's even a clear process for handling new technologies until formal standards catch up. It's all about verified competence and strict adherence for safety.
Excellent. Now for our final section today, AMC 145.A.30G. This one focuses on personnel requirements specifically for minor line maintenance. Sam, maybe start by reminding us of the basic difference between line and base maintenance and why that matters for these personnel rules.
Sure. So line maintenance is typically done while the aircraft is on the ramp, between flights or maybe overnight. It's focused on keeping the aircraft flying safely with quick checks, servicing, and fixing relatively simple defects. Base maintenance, on the other hand, happens in a hangar. It involves much deeper, scheduled maintenance checks, major repairs, modifications, things that take the aircraft out of service for longer. The distinction matters because line maintenance often needs quicker action by personnel with specific but potentially more limited authorizations.
Got it.
Clause 1 defines what counts as minor line maintenance for certain personnel categories, specifically those covered by 66.A.20A3. Minor scheduled line maintenance means any minor scheduled inspection check up to and including a weekly check specified in the aircraft maintenance program. For aircraft maintenance programs that do not specify a weekly check, the competent authority will determine the most significant check that is considered equivalent to a weekly check.
Okay, so it's about those frequent routine checks, typically up to a weekly interval. And if the program calls it something else, the authority can decide what's equivalent. Provides a bit of flexibility there.
That's right. It allows these authorized personnel to handle common, repetitive tasks right there on the line. The flexibility on equivalence just ensures the rule's intent applies, even if maintenance programs use slightly different terms for similar checks.
Now, this next part, Clause 2, gets really specific. It lists typical tasks these personnel are allowed to do, especially when it comes to issuing a certificate of release to service under 145.A.30.
It does. Clause 2 says these are typical tasks permitted after appropriate task training. For the purpose of these personnel issuing an aircraft certificate of release to service as part of minor scheduled line maintenance or simple defect rectification.
The list is quite long, but it generally covers tasks that are fairly straightforward replacements or simple repairs, things that don't usually require in-depth troubleshooting.
Can you give us a few examples from that list? Sure. It includes things like replacing wheel assemblies, replacing wheel brake units, replacing emergency equipment, think life vests, first aid kits, portable O2 bottles, cabin items like ovens, boilers, beverage makers, replacing passenger seats or belts, exterior things like replacing internal and external lights, filaments, flash tubes, windscreen wiper blades, static wicks, closing up cowlings, refitting quick access panels, simple repairs to internal doors or placards as long as they're not part of the pressure structure, replacing aircraft main or APU batteries, routine lubrication and replenishing fluids and gases.
Okay, so quite a range of fairly common tasks.
Yes, and importantly, it also includes, under point P, the deactivation only of subsystems and aircraft components as permitted by the operator's minimum equipment list, where such deactivation is agreed by the competent authority as a simple task. Note that emphasis, deactivation only. It has to be in the ML and agreed as simple. And point R allows any other task agreed by the competent authority as a simple task for a particular aircraft type. This can even include deferring a defect, but only if 3 conditions are met. 1, there's absolutely no need for troubleshooting. 2, the task is in the MEL. And 3, the specific maintenance action the MEL calls for is agreed by the competent authority to be simple.
Those 3 conditions for deferral seem really important. No troubleshooting, it's in the MEL, and the authority agrees it's simple. No shortcuts there.
Absolutely not. Those are hard requirements. And for helicopters, there are some additional specific tasks listed, like removing and installing simple HEMS medical equipment, external cargo hooks or mirrors, but not the hoist, quick release cameras, emergency float bags, not the bottles themselves, quick release external doors, and snow pads or skidwear shoes. And crucially, right at the end of this long list, it reiterates, no task which requires troubleshooting should be part of the authorized maintenance actions. Release to service after rectification of deferred defects should be permitted as long as the task is listed above.
That no troubleshooting rule is a major safety boundary, isn't it? It basically says, if you need to figure out why something failed, it's not a minor task anymore. It needs someone with broader diagnostic authority.
Precisely. It ensures complex problem solving, goes to personnel certified for that level of work, keeps things safe. Now, Clause 3 addresses staffing levels at line stations. The requirement of having appropriate aircraft-rated certifying staff, qualified as Category B1, B2, B2L, B3L as appropriate, does not imply that the organization must have B1, B2, B2L, B3, and L personnel at every line station. The MOE should have a procedure on how to deal with defects requiring those categories of certifying staff.
So this gives organizations some operational flexibility. A small line station doesn't necessarily need to have every single license category on site 24/7.
That's the idea. For instance, a smaller station might mainly have B1 mechanics available, but their MOE must have a clear, approved procedure for what happens if a defect comes up that needs, say, a B2 avionics specialist or maybe a B3 piston engine expert. How do they get that expertise? Call the main base. Bring in a mobile team. The procedure has to cover it.
Okay.
And Clause 4 builds on that. The competent authority may accept that. An organization has only B1, B2, B2L, B3, or L certifying staff, as appropriate, provided that the competent authority is satisfied that the scope of work, as defined in the MOE, does not need the availability of all those categories. Special attention should be taken to clearly limit the scope of scheduled and non-scheduled line maintenance to only those tasks that can be certified by the available category of certifying staff.
So the authority plays a key role here, verifying that if an organization proposes having limited staff categories at a station, the work scope defined in their MOE is genuinely limited to what that staff can safely handle and certify.
Exactly. The authority has to be satisfied. An organization might specialize only in, say, certain turboprop aircraft where B1 coverage is usually sufficient. The authority might approve that limited staffing, but the MOE must be absolutely crystal clear about restricting the scope of work to only what those B1 staff are authorized to certify. No ambiguity allowed.
Right. Safety relies on those clearly defined limits.
Absolutely.
So wrapping up the section on minor line maintenance, what's the overall picture?
The overall picture is that minor line maintenance is carefully defined, covering frequent checks and a specific list of simple tasks suitable for quick turnarounds. Critically, any task requiring troubleshooting is excluded. The regulations allow flexibility in how organizations staff their line stations, but this flexibility is balanced by the requirement for robust procedures in the MOE, detailing how any task outside the local staff scope will be handled. And all of this is under the watchful eye and approval of the competent authority, ensuring the work scope always matches the personnel qualifications to maintain safety.
We've covered a lot of ground today, really diving into these crucial parts of personnel requirements under 145.A.30. We looked at the essential nature of ongoing safety training, the meticulous world of non-destructive testing, and the very specific rules around minor line maintenance tasks.
Yeah, and you can really see how these different elements work together. They create layers of safety, making sure that every maintenance action, from a simple light bulb change to complex NDT, is done by people with the right training and the right authorization for that specific job. It builds safety into the system at every step.
It really does. And here's a thought to leave you with. Considering those very clear limits on what minor line maintenance personnel can do, especially that strict no troubleshooting rule, and comparing that with the intense qualification demands for NDT specialists, how does this precise separation of roles and responsibilities really strengthen aviation safety overall? It seems designed to ensure that the tricky problems always land with the people best equipped to solve them. Something to think about.
These notes are only part of the EMCs related to Clause 145.A.30.
In the next episodes, we will go into more detail about the remaining AMCs. Follow us on social media under the name Phoenix Way Academy. Thanks for listening. Stay safe and stay informed.